So today we're going to be talking about all the things that do and don't matter in candidate experience in 2025. We're going to go a little different to start this month than we have in months past, and we are going to preview what we're going to be doing next month. And I think one of our panelists next month actually just joined the chat not too long ago, so this will be fun. But next month, we're going to be doing everything you wanted to know about AI and TA, but we're afraid to ask. It's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern on March 20th, Eastern Daylight Time, not Eastern Standard Time. March 20th.
Catch.
Yeah, Alex beat that one into me, but obviously I didn't listen to it enough for the promotional graphic here. But March 26th, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence in TA. With Matt Charney, Matt Staney, Cameron Moore, and Cian Salon. I'm going to drop a link to register for this talk at the beginning of our chat today, and then also towards the end. And in that registration will be an opportunity to put in a question that will make sure we collate all of those, categorize them, and make sure we tackle them in next month's session. But this month, right now, we're talking about candidate experience. We have an incredible panel. And with that, I will turn it over to Leah, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who's joined us today. So super excited today to talk about candidate experience. A little bit of information on JobSync. So JobSync is an application that many organizations use to remove a lot of the friction and frustration that live in between their ATS and their CRM and the broader candidate market. So we help optimize both directions of data, usually resulting 2, 3, 5x more candidates for high volume roles and optimizing for some of the professional roles. So if you're interested in that, definitely reach out to us. I've personally been in this space for longer than I'm going to ever admit to. And I'm super excited about this particular group of people who are joining us today. I'm going to mention one person, then come back around and have him introduce himself last. But Kevin Grossman has joined us. He leads the Candies and is also my co-host on the Talent Sync, which is a podcast that we do together, in which we mostly just hang out as friends and chit chat about stuff. And sometimes I think it's interesting. And people download it, so that's exciting. Sometimes they download it. It's very exciting for us. But I'll come back to Kevin in a minute. I'm going to have the remainder of our panel introduce themselves. All of these are Candy winners from 2024. I'm really excited for them to be able to help provide some insight and information around candidate experience from last year and really future telling around what's going to happen this year, right? As the markets are shifting and changing and cooling, what have we learned last year and in previous years that we are going to be able to apply to this year, and what might be very different? So I'm going to have Bradley kick us off first because one of our panelists is new to one of these things, so we'll let her go last. So Mr. Cooper, not the actor, but just as awesome. Would you mind giving us a quick intro on you, your business, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of like in a movie right here. So in a way, I get to live that dream. So I am the AVP of technology for Sasser Workforce Solutions. We're based out of North Carolina. We are a cloud-based, SaaS-based staffing firm, and we do remodel and new store openings for the big box stores, Walmart, C-stores, all the different places that we could end up throughout the U.S. on any given day with our staff. So we're technology enabled to be able to do that out of one office.
Amazing. And Linda, can you give us a little intro on you?
Hi, I'm Linda Whittemore. I'm Director of Talent Acquisition for Room and Board. I'm headquartered out of Minneapolis. We have about 1,100 staff members throughout the country. Home furnishings is what we sell, and creating beautiful spaces for our customers. And we hire maybe about 150 people a year, so a little small shop, but proud, and a proud Candy winner.
Awesome. Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Curley, Manager of Talent Acquisition at the Friedkin Group. If you haven't heard of us, we are a hidden gem located in Houston, Texas. We are a family-owned, privately held company. with more than 18 different companies underneath with different verticals, including automotive, entertainment, investment, sports, and travel and adventure. So a lot of things, a lot of very diversified different companies that we have. But one fun fact is that the Oscars are coming up this weekend, and we do have an Oscar-nominated film called Anora, and it is distributed by our company Neon. So just want to give a plug for that. And thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited and definitely a proud first-time Candy Award winner from 2024.
Amazing. And congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank
And Kevin, want to bring it
Hi.
home here?
Hi. How's everybody doing? So let me tell a little bit about the program first. So for the past 13 years, we've been running a candidate experience benchmark research program where employers every year participate, survey populations of their own candidates, get anonymized feedback. We then analyze that feedback, provide that data back to them compared to the aggregate companies that participate across industries. A good portion, usually about 3/4 of the participants in our history have been mid-sized to global enterprise, although there are some smaller companies too that participate. And just to give you context for those who aren't familiar about what Candy Winner means, the companies who have above average ratings from their candidates in our research every year are the ones that win our awards. And they're the only companies we publicly list on our website because it is a confidential and anonymized benchmark research program for the employers and their candidates. But of course, for the three that are on today, when you do have an above average ratings, you definitely want to shout from the rooftops with that, especially where we're at today.
And Kevin, I think it's worth mentioning that, the survey results, 80% of them have to come from candidates that have been regretted in the interview process. So
Yes.
when you tell people that, you realize, okay, you're working hard to get that rating.
Linda, you said that before. I mean, sorry, the word that you just referenced when you say regretted. I don't hear that. I like that because I heard this disposition rejected, which is pretty blatant and very negative connotation. But regretted, I like that. That's very nice. But yes, you're right. Actually, can I use that? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The average. The actual percentage breakdown every year globally in our data is 90% of the responses are those who are not hired. The criteria for the employers is that we want you to target 80% or more that those who weren't hired at the end of the day. So it is more of a reflection of the real market that's out there because most job candidates unfortunately won't get that job that they're interested in. Even those that, again, there's going to be finalists that are somewhat qualified for that role, but most of the roles, unless it's transactional, recurring, high volume hiring, 1-2 people at a time for each of those roles. So yes, it's a good majority of people regretted. I really like that, by the way. Yeah.
So Kevin, you do this every year, and so you get to incredible opportunity to see trends of data as you look at what came out of 2024. Let's start with the hard questions. What were the big trends in 2024? And as much as I know you love doing this, what's that crystal ball of yours say for 2025?
I hate that question. I know.
I know. That's why I asked it.
We have collaborated many times already. I hate being a soothsayer, but first I'll start with, so unfortunately, the trend that we've seen over the past few years is that the negative sentiment has grown a lot, actually. And more so, and again, it's not the market that it was 3 years ago coming out. I mean, we've seen a lot of volatility coming out of COVID. It's not the candidate, definitely not a candidate market right now. It's taking 50% longer, if not longer, for professional level salary people to find roles across industries today than it was even 2 years ago. So there's a lot of dramatic changes in it, but we call it the resentment rate. So the percentage of candidates who say they'll never do anything again with that employer because they felt it was so horrific, they're just done. That has never been higher. Now, it still seems relatively low in our data. When we look at the average is 14%, but finance and insurance and technology industries, for example, resentment's at 25% and 20% respectively. I mean, it's really high, but when you project that out over all the candidates around the world, it could be a significant impact on business and brand over time. And even those who aren't in that bucket of I will never do anything with you again, just the negative sentiment has grown dramatically. Application rates, and these three can attest to this too, right? And there's been an influx in applications across job types, and there's that many more people to screen out that unfortunately when the serial applications start building up, people also get buried underneath that potentially maybe we're qualified. And this is not to say anything against the recruiting teams that are, and if there's any automation involved in this, that are doing the initial early screening at top of funnel. But those are some of the things. So negative resentment has grown. It's harder to get a job for candidates. Even internal candidates, which is a small segment of our data, that is also lost some of its luster as well in that regard. So overall, it is definitely a more negative experience for job candidates today. Yes.
I mean, this is the market we're in, right? And I think you mentioned if there's these two different candidate markets. We've got the hourly workforce that continues to be one specific group, and then we have this professional market where we are really seeing those volumes change. I know, Linda, Bradley, you guys both hire in mass for hourly workers. Is that correct? Elizabeth, I actually don't know. Because of all your brands, is that something you have some hourly workforce and some professional workforce? Do you have a mix?
We do, but our team focuses on professional hires,
Okay.
so they're mostly salary, but there are some hourly and not at like mass amounts. Whereas like we have a supply chain operations where they handle, multiple, the hourly population there.
You can't change the fact that candidates in general are growing in resentment. You can't change the market conditions in which we have more candidates applying for jobs. Can each of you guys talk about how, as businesses, you are trying to maintain a high level of candidate experience given those wins that are somewhat against you? Do you want to start, Linda? We'll pick on Linda.
Yeah, so we don't do high volume recruiting in the traditional sense of high volume recruiting, but majority of our roles are hourly. And and for us, again, small team, not a ton of hires, but we have seen an increase in applicant rate per job just due to the current state of the marketplace. And it is a challenge, balancing workload and allowing our recruiters the space to create a good candidate experience. And honestly, it's really balancing our workload at this point. I mean, we're leveraging technology where we can, and we're leveraging AI where we can. But as a small shop, some of those solutions are very, very expensive and not affordable or attainable. So we've got to get kind of creative, and we actually put a lot more control in the rec load number, and we'll put recs on hold in our company instead of just, cramming them and loading them onto the team and syncing them, because that's where candidate experience falls, right? Is when your workload's too high. So we'll put recs on hold. And again, we're leveraging automation and different tools where we can to minimize those routine mundane tasks too on our team.
That makes sense. What about you, Elizabeth? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, I would share the same sentiment. We worked on optimizing our application earlier this year. That was one thing that we heard feedback from, that the application was taking people anywhere from 5 minutes to 25 minutes, which was really crazy. So we actually ended up getting it down to under 3 minutes. So it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds right now. But we're continuing to optimize systems to streamline everything, eliminate manual tasks, as Linda said, very similar. We do have some technology things in place that have helped us, with interview scheduling, surveys, automation there, and also interview note taking, et cetera. So some really good technology that we've been able to implement that have assisted the recruiters in spending more time and focus on the candidate and being able to listen to them, especially in that interview process, was very important. Instead of focusing on taking notes, they're able to get those notes later in a summarized format and share that with the hiring manager. So I think those are great things to note, with our process.
Bradley, what do you have to what is your business doing or seeing that's different?
Yes. So, going back, just kind of do a quick journey. When I first joined the company several years ago, we had basically over automated the process, meaning that when a candidate hit our website with a few questions, they were already being asked for social security numbers, starting at 99, and they would never have talked to anybody. And when we say we high volume hiring, back then we were hiring 24,000 people because there was no gate to stop somebody doing a background check and automatically going through the process. So fast forward to the last couple of years, what we've done is we really have a really robust talent experience management platform that we use from the very beginning, where we use a high volume hiring solution that kind of helps the candidate track through to find the right fit job for them through a series of questions and kind of leading the candidate. And then if they get to a certain point and meet those kind of go, no go steps, there's scheduling automation. So by the time they've gone through that, gotten their kind of check off saying, hey, we want to interview you, they're getting an immediate request for interview. So they're leaving that experience knowing they have their interview at the next available opportunity. So it really does allow us to scale and hire at mass. Having 20 or 30 interviews a day per recruiter, or 10 or 15, with a goal in some cases to be 100 hires a week. And our conversion rate's about 50% right now. So, we're still losing half of the candidates we talk to in process somewhere. And it really goes back to trying to find those balance points of where do you want to give the candidate the steps and the technology to get to the next point without friction, but where is it most critical to have that human connection, to have that conversation? Because we're staffing, we already kind of have a negative bias against us to begin with, that we have to overcome in our hiring, because we're hiring to work at known clients, whereas we aren't. And so the human aspect is probably one of the most important parts of the process. And that's something we're currently reshaping and redefining through some of the information we learned from the candies last year. It highlighted areas that we needed to go back and refocus, and that's what we've really tried to do this year, and kind of realigning our teams and efforts.
You said at the beginning here that you over automated, which is an amazing statement, right? How was it the survey with the Candy Awards, or was it other indicators that got the business to take a moment and go, wow, we might have overshot the goal here and let's make some changes?
So it was pre-candies. We went through a whole digital transformation, and we were kind of riding that wave everybody was a few years ago, looking at all of our solutions and how we could optimize all of those. And one of those was the lack of a candidate experience. Basically, it was you just get thrown into a funnel and it's all automated, and no way to track the candidates, no way to communicate with them in it. And that started a journey. And as we developed that, that's when we found the candies. So, we were a four-time participant, three-time winner. You can't win them all, and but the value you get from going through it is, just understanding your candidate's journey allows you to make those adjustments.
Kevin, sort of summarizing from all of this, when you
Yeah.
look at the overall Candy data, um, what are you seeing? And is there some sort of breakdown as it comes across by industry? Are you seeing different things in retail versus healthcare versus software or technology companies in terms of what's working and what's not working in candidate experience right
A
now?
lot of a lot of the universals that we see year after year are all relate to communication and feedback loops. So regardless of industry, whether that's a mix of human interaction and especially automation today, when those are consistent, we do see a bump in positive sentiment across industries like that. In industries where there is harder to fill positions and are more professional salaried level versus high volume hiring, there is even a deeper negative skew, especially this past 2 years, of the process taking too long, for example, I mean, one of the number one negative reason why candidates, especially professional and management candidates, tell us that they withdraw from the process every year is because they say their time was disrespected, especially during screening and interview stage. And that's much higher for the professional management level than it is on the hourly side in our data, even though, and that's across industries, whether it's hospitality, um, et cetera. But it's definitely much higher with those segments. There's more hoops to jump through. There always is, and because it's a harder market for that level now for professional to management, that's definitely put a lot more pressure on employers to follow up and follow through with those individuals versus where automation is helping on the high volume side is the transactional communications that happen pre-application, during application, and a lot of times now with the hourly population, all the way up until making them an offer, I've seen and can be more automated now. And as long as that's done in a consistent, timely fashion, of course, we all want to talk to humans, but if things are happening and I'm being engaged and I'm getting to that next step in a timely way, then there always is more positive sentiment in that regard. But in technology in particular, this one is pretty obvious, right? I mean, tech professionals have been beat up and down and all around since the hoarding of 2021, and then the shedding of them ever since that continues now. That's why we see in our data 25% resentment from that particular population. Or that segment, that industry. Finance and insurance is right behind it at 20% as well, and mostly again on that non-technical, technical, professional salary level and above. Those are
Linda,
some of the high-level things.
yeah. Linda, you said when you're just doing sort of a talk through that you guys work really hard to make sure you're load balancing for your recruiters, which is, I think, everyone's goal, right? If you think about what recruiting is, it's a process. And if you put too much in the top, you're not going to get out of the bottom. The problem, I think, for a lot of organizations is it's not a recruiting process. It's not just the recruiting team. You're not doing this in a vacuum. You have hiring managers that need to be responsive and available. Kevin, as you know, one of the things that elongates hiring processes is all of the people that need to interview someone and, oh, I'm on vacation and, oh, I'm not available and I'm in meetings all day, whatever it might be.
Scheduling is a big disruptor too, by the way, which is why automation has helped in that regard as well.
My question for Linda is, while you're load balancing for your recruiting team, how are you keeping your broader organization in step with you so that you're not actually in a place where your recruiters can handle the volume, but they can't actually get the job done because they're still fighting the folks in the business to make themselves available?
That's where my job is really easy, I'll be honest with you, because we have an amazing culture and we have amazing leaders. And I'm not exaggerating. Like I don't think I could be as successful as I am at Room and Board without the partnership with our leaders and the commitment to them. And, I think we educate them through the candidate experience, through data, through that as one piece. And, I think as a retailer who takes great pride in our customer surveys and customer feedback and recognizing that some of our candidates are consumers of our brand, we have that equally on our radar from a net promoter score and just, so again, I think I'm inside a culture that takes it pretty seriously, and that helps us move mountains sometimes without a lot of effort, I'll be honest.
We start to think about, oh, Elizabeth, do you want to jump in?
Oh, I was just going to chime in because I know, with our company, it's a very collaborative culture, and we struggle with teams wanting to interview everybody wanting to interview everybody that gets hired, right? So it gets really a long process. And so we've been really working hard to streamline those processes and streamline the interview process. And we just implemented a, kind of a 30-day check-in with our leaders. So if our rec is open at 30 days, we actually sit down with them and talk with them and say, what's going on what's going on in your group, what's going on in your business, your team, kind of what are the other factors that are influencing the delay in the requisition so we can understand those and then take action from that data. So I just wanted to include that.
I have two separate parallel paths I want to go on. So at the same time, it's always the worst. Let me start with this. I'd ask Kevin, what's 2025 hold as the first, I don't know, what are we at? 57 days of the year have already been a bit of a roller coaster for everyone. As you all look at your businesses and your candidates and your capacity and your hiring, what's going to change this year? Are you guys running straight at the DE&I debate? Are you embracing all AI all the time? What's in your future this year that you can talk about, of course? Bradley, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're probably not a lot of changes, because we're once again hiring based on basic skills. Are you willing to show up to work? Are you professional? Can you learn? There are some high skilled roles that we do hire for. We're really on our focus is once again going back to our processes, building that collaboration between our teams, between operations, between the recruiting to make sure everybody understands how to really, once a candidate makes it through the process, we can get them to work. Because there's a lot of factors because of our clients. A lot of times we don't know where we're hiring people until 2 weeks out, 30 days. So we're on a very tight timeline sometimes. And then also sometimes some very hard markets, middle of Minnesota in the winter. It's going to be hard to find candidates. And so that's where for us, the macroeconomic picture definitely affects us. But a lot of times, like the political climate and things that are going on, that's not as much on our radar because the type of candidate that we serve is kind of an everyone American or even, so they're representative of the greater population and it's all based on where the work is at that time. But we do have some of our trusted partners that we are working that using our use cases to help maybe refine their AI offerings as well. So we're excited to kind of start bringing that in through some of that, but it's not a must-have at this time.
What about you, Linda? What are you guys seeing for this year?
It's all about technology for us to, again, kind of offload. I saw MetaView pop up, great tool, saves a ton of time. We're looking at scheduling. We do self-scheduling at the recruiter level. We have iCIMS at our platform. It falls short for scheduling anything beyond kind of one-on-one, pretty simple, non-branded. So we're kind of looking at scheduling tools that would sit on top of iCIMS. Oh, geez. Yeah, we use artificial intelligence a lot, just if it's even our job descriptions or communications. We actually named it Pat the other day because we use it so often and it feels like a staff member, at least a, part-time equivalent. And yeah, so I think technology is on our mind because again, we're a small team that likes it and recognizes, I think, as artificial intelligence in particular and agents become a little smarter with regard to workflow and what's happening from a candidate's behavior. I think it really opens up a lot of opportunity for us to leverage technology, streamline our workflow, but kind of keep that personal level that we really strive to accomplish, that personalized human touch.
Amazing. Elizabeth, you guys obviously hire for lots of brands. Do you have consistency among all your brands, or do you find that you guys are having to spend some energy just keeping all the different brands swimming in the same direction?
Well,
And how are you doing all that?
Full disclosure, we do have a lot of brands, but our corporate recruiting team focuses on the automotive vertical. So we are pretty much in that space, for our professional businesses. So it's pretty consistent there. For us this year, we would love to continue, streamlining and optimizing our systems. So, and improving candidate experience, based on our results from last year and hopefully continue to get a Candy Award this year. That's the goal. I'm excited because we started doing our surveys already. So we're going to get a lot more data this year. Last year we kind of got started a little bit later. And
I just saw Kevin's face light up. Like I could see it like him just smiling
I
across the,
know.
the camera.
You know, Kevin, I wanted a candy award for like 7 years now, and I just finally got mine, so I'm excited.
That's great.
So anyway, for 2025 into 2026, our focus is really going to be in, the other side of the coin, which is the employee experience. And so we've kind of been neglecting that side. So we're really looking at a full life cycle, strategy, so starting at workforce planning all the way through, interview guides, job descriptions, interview guides, I already said workforce planning, and then into, performance management and our learning management system. So working with a skills taxonomy and, implementing that and, kind of removing those barriers for our internal employees to move about the company because we've got so many different companies within even the automotive space. They're able to, have that level set of skills, whether they're an accountant in our, Gulf States Toyota company or our GSFS group, they could move around. And so opening their eyes to that and seeing, how we can retain talent, because that's going to be a key, right? Is we want to retain our great talent, moving forward. So that's kind of our focus right now in this year.
Kevin, as you look at 2025, what are the non-negotiables? What do companies have to do, both internally in terms of structure and what they do to make it possible to have a great candidate experience on the external side? So what are the non-negotiables in your mind? I know you said communication, and I've heard you say that for years.
Well, communication, even yeah, it is always yours. But I mean, I think one area, especially with let's talk about AI right now and automation, because automation isn't new. And for as long as the interwebs have been around, and we've had our first, online job sites and ATSs, automation has been the bane, unfortunately, of a lot of candidates for a long time. And that's been the unfortunate reality there. But it's also been really helpful to employers when it comes to managing their application flow. But when you think about the lack of optimization today, and of course, I'm sure that some of the things that our guests have shared today, they're working on. There's always something to do with their tech stack, but I would argue collectively, especially now with the influx of AI, and now there's this big push for AI recruiting agents, and there's a lot of. I mean, I just saw a demo the other day of an organization that it blew me away, and how human-like the AI agent was. I mean, there's just some fascinating things that are happening, but it's still a really relatively small percentage, less than 20% of at least the companies in our benchmark that are actually implementing some kind of AI in their recruiting tech, primarily around candidate communications, which again bodes to the communication loops that we talk about every year. But a lot of teams they're leaner than they've ever been. It's been rough to be in this profession in TA, as many of everybody knows that's on this call, and peers and colleagues that continue to be laid off. I just saw Starbucks did a layoff yesterday too. I mean, there continues to be, and a lot of TA folks have been out looking for work. But my point is that there's been fewer team and resources internally. And maybe they have a good partnership with their vendors that they're working with, but the systems are just continue to be under optimized. And think about, for example, top of funnel, when an application comes in, and how many ATSs today, whether it's HiredScore with Workday or other mainstream ATSs, where you have the ability to be able to filter, match, even rank candidates as they come in. And there's a lot of hesitancy for a lot of reasons, compliance reasons, lack of optimization training, but all of these things are impacting, and the volume just continues to come. So I think that's one of the things that I highlighted recently in an article, that's going to make things a lot worse in the near term than better. I know there's a lot of talk, and we work with a lot of amazing vendors that have some really, really cool products. It is going to be really messy and hard, though, in regards to get these to be fully optimized, so that personalized experience for every single candidate that's applying for a job, whether it's hourly, professional, across the board, and how they're being interacted with, their interviews are scheduled. all of those things, which is why it behooves the human side of the equation that I would recommend. And I think what a lot of our three guests have also highlighted too is to really have that, because when you get to the point where you actually are screening and interviewing, making offers to and hiring, that is where the human interaction investment should be consistent as much as possible over time. Because I think that the application flow is going to only increase. God forbid something that the economy takes a nosedive this year. I mean, things have still kind of moved along stably, but we don't know from day to day what's going to happen next. But I think we've got, sooner than later, we're going to hit the ceiling in regards to what is it that we're doing with our tech stack? Is it working for us? I can tell you this, but the last thing I'll say on my little diatribe is that unfortunately, no matter what an employer does, the sheer majority of people that apply for a job that are not qualified, which is another part of the equation of how you get more candidates to self-select and not apply if they're not really fit for that role, the sheer volume of that, it's an uphill battle for employers, even if you did get your tech stack in order in the house, because you could have the greatest response time, concierge, even automated candidate experience in the world, and the point you tell somebody no, it's always going to skew negative. The key is, and this is very subjective, I know, we've been measuring this for a long time, do the candidates feel it was positive and fair? And are they willing to engage the business and the brand again, which can change on a dime, right? Because we're point in time data, and the trend lines don't look great, bode well for it right now. And if it becomes a candidate market again, it will turn around again. So,
it is going to get worse, right? Because right now,
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially for those that are applying for jobs. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And we're seeing the increase in the AI apply bots, right? Which I don't know if you all have seen those.
There's a whole bunch that are out there.
There's so many of them, which is almost the candidate's response, right, to things we've taught them over the years. You have to apply to 100 jobs to get a job, and now they're like, fine, well, I'll do that. Here you go.
That's even still a relatively small percentage. I think that's going to change this year and beyond in our data. The more and more automation is available for all parties.
Well, we're seeing more and more of those bots become free, which I think is an accelerator. So previously there was a price for like lazy apply. Some of the newer ones are monetizing by selling the candidate traffic to other job boards. So it's a whole nother story for another day. But I think we're going to see more as it becomes free to the candidate, because a free tool will have a wider adoption, which means we're going to have more automation on the candidate side being met with the same level automation on the hiring side. That's going to fail, right? We're gonna drown. So we are going to have to meet it with more automation and AI. And I do think that this will be an interesting year. Personally, this is my read on this. You guys can tell me I'm wrong. I think that this year we will see more clarity in what AI can and cannot do for us. I think for the last few years, it's been conflated with automation, and you can't have AI without automation. It's standalone, doesn't do much. But the conflation of the two, where things that have previously just been automation, are being called AI, and they're not. They're just, a set of rules that allow things to happen. Interview scheduling being a great example. Like, when this happens, do these things. That's not AI. That's just automation, and that's fine. But getting clarity around where AI really does have an impact, and in a positive way versus a negative way. I'll tell you guys, I tried to chat with my AI agent yesterday on my ATS here, JobSync, and it told me it wasn't available after 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And I was like, what is the point of an AI agent? It's not available 24 hours a day. I don't understand what's happening.
Was it on lunch? What's going on?
I mean, it's probably related to Slack, which is also not working today, I'm guessing.
Right, that's true, right?
So is that really an AI agent, guys? I think it's not, right? So I think that's maybe being human monitored. But I am curious to see this year how, as recruiting teams, if we get to a point of clarity around what is AI versus what is an automation. Elizabeth, somebody had asked in here, I just wanted to call it out. They'd asked what interview note-taking tool you are using.
We are
if you're willing to share.
MetaView.
MetaView. The one thing I would say to everybody who uses these, just make sure you check with your lawyers
Yeah.
because
Yes, please. There are legal ramifications for sure.
please be aware that is not a risk-free choice.
Leah, I want to thank you, by the way, because Leah's been, since we have fun collaborating on this podcast and just our industry discussions that we've had over time, you constantly are reminding me of the compliance side of recruiting and hiring.
I know.
No, but
I'm a Debbie Downer like that.
No, but you have to be though. It's it's super important, regardless of what changes with this administration to the next. It's an important consideration that does impact the candidate experience, the recruiter experience, the hiring manager experience, what happens at the employer retention. I mean, all of these things that impact, and it's important to talk about. And again, one of the reasons why I've heard, at least anecdotally, from a lot of organizations who aren't using that functionality I was just talking about, where to match as they're coming in as applications, is it making a selection decision or not at the end of the day? And that's a compliance worry for a lot of organizations. Anybody that knows what happened with the Workday lawsuit last year, that the plaintiff, the candidate, was found in favor of. But I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I just want to thank you again, because that doesn't, you're not a Debbie Downer, but it is an important thing in our world and in recruiting and hiring that we cannot ignore. Employers know this. Linda, Elizabeth, and Bradley know this firsthand for sure. So
go ahead.
I'll just jump in really quickly because we're in the process of migrating to a different phone system, and a lot of the phone systems that our recruiters are going to use, right, have are starting to release AI transcripts, task automation, and those type of tools that maybe aren't necessarily part of your CRM or however you're hiring. So as we've started to launch this, we've actually turned everything off, and so there's going to be the compliance and the legal review, but then also is the internal training, because there is a lot of benefit to rolling that out. But little things like going back to teach people how to be professional on the phone. What do you discuss? Because now it's going to be recorded. So an offhand comment or the way you interact with somebody now can become legally discoverable. So it is a very, very important question to ask. And it's not just looking at your main pieces of technology solutions that you use, like your ATS or your HRIS or something. You're going to need to start looking at your phone systems. If you're using SMS in your, your day-to-day, it may start doing it with SMS. So as a tech leader since I work closely with my recruiting and HR leaders, that's one of my concerns always is what are our tech vendors releasing on a regular basis that we have to keep an eye on, because sometimes those releases are just automatically turned on. And they could potentially get you in hot water if you don't realize they're on, or you're misusing them, or even don't know the intent of what they do. So it's not something that keeps me up at night, but it's something I pay very close attention to.
It's a great point. What, as you guys think, and I'm just looking at our time, so we've got about 15 minutes left. As we look forward, what are the skills that your teams, both your leadership and your individual recruiters, and even maybe hiring managers, need to rapidly learn in order to continue to navigate this world that we're looking at, right? How do you prepare them so that you continue to deliver the best candidate experience internally and externally to your constituency, but also don't have any surprises around these compliance things? So what are those skills that you guys are going to focus on this year for your teams? Do you want to jump back in, Bradley, or do you want me to give you a minute?
Oh, no, I think it's just a continuation of that comment. Because across the organization, we're looking at implementing some other things for our employees based on the mobile apps they use. Our favorite state of California, right? If somebody's checking in online on a mobile app, do we have to pay them for it? So I think it's just an overall focus on compliance throughout the organization, be it from the candidate hiring process to how we're employing our people every day. And the great thing is I have a great HR team that a couple of people love to do this. So they keep us honest, and they're really forward looking and try to stay on top of all the changing regulations and laws. And because we operate in pretty much any given zip code in the United States, we have to understand every single one of those down to the county and city level a lot of times. We've got a just as a aside is we have a table of 42,000 zip codes with our base pay rates on it to make sure we're not violating any minimum wage laws. So it is a very important thing for us to do, and it's just having that partnership with my HR team is absolutely one of the most valuable things I can have with our technology and staying compliant.
Bradley, follow-up question on that point about checking in. Are you referring to like if you have a contract with somebody from a staffing perspective to check in and see if they are working, that there's a debate about whether or not you'd have to pay them for taking that action?
Yeah. So basically, is there a technology fee because we're requiring somebody to have a mobile application, so they're geo-fenced at the location they go to work? Depending on the different state you talk to, there's some, a lot of gray area on what that looks like, and at what level. So, is it a lead that's documenting, taking pictures, managing things on their device? Absolutely, there's probably a use case for that. But then the simple, you're an employee, it's essentially your time clock in your pocket, right? And total amount of time spent on it, maybe hopefully no more than a minute a day, clocking in, clocking out. But is there a regulation saying that, because you're asking them to download, maintain a cellular device, is there a technology stipend? So that's just the complications that we deal with the way that we are cloud-based, SaaS-based, single office company employing people all throughout the U.S., and the mobile device is the primary device that we use.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll
Linda,
jump in on your question that you asked. I am reflecting on a conversation we had a meeting yesterday with all of our delivery and distribution leaders across the country. And one of the things we talked about, honestly, was our need for them to partner more with us in identifying talent at the front of the funnel, like to bring them into the funnel, and also to partner in relationships with candidates who we've nurtured, who are in our pipeline. And because we're seeing so many great benefits of that differentiation in the world of automation and AI and everything else that's not human, that if, we can really stand out with that relationship-based strategy and approach, and again, leaning on them a little bit more for that than we maybe have historically, where it's usually sat only exclusively with the recruiter or the recruiting team. So that's just a thought to share.
that's interesting. Elizabeth, what about you guys? Are you looking at skills that you guys need to invest in for your recruiting teams in order for them to continue to thrive as they go forward this year?
Yeah, so I think understanding the data-driven decisions that we make, and looking at their requisitions and timing and close rates and et cetera. So looking at all that data and be able to have a story to tell from that data, I think is a skill that we all need to have going forward, because we are going to be utilizing so many different systems and technology. And that's where that human element comes in, where we can explain it to somebody in a human way and a way they can understand and communicate. Another area, engagement and branding, and like along with our, I think Linda talked about our engagement with candidates, and we're upgrading our CRM right now, so that's going to be a big learning curve, for our team, is how do we engage those pipelines and focus on that talent, nurturing them throughout even if they don't get the job, or getting them involved in our company, right? Because our company is privately held, and it's not as well known as a lot of companies out there. So it does take a little bit more outreach for us in the community, and with our social media, et cetera, to get people to understand our brand.
One of the things you guys didn't say that I'm surprised by is critical thinking on what the AIs are producing. So one of the things that we are seeing more and more of is the hallucinogenic nature of AI and AI generation, and making sure our people are looking at things and going, well, that job description is lovely, but not the job I asked it to write it for, right? Or, oh, that's nice, but no human on the planet could possibly have that skill set. So is that something that you guys are actively doing, or is that something that's just passively happening because of the general nature of just AI and everybody's sort of being forced into it?
It's happening. Well aware, right? I think
Mm.
they know the shortcomings. We know the shortcomings. We look for them, and nothing's bulletproof for sure.
Awesome. Kevin, I have a question in the chat here that I was holding. It came at the beginning, and then I'm just holding it now.
Yeah.
It's a big one because this is from Mr. Charney, who I don't know if he's still on or not.
I read it.
Oh, you got it. Do you want to take it, or you want me to just pretend like we didn't have this conversation and it wasn't there?
No. I don't know, Matt. Always, it's a really, really good question, and it's a hard one for us to answer. And I'm gonna answer it this way. First, I think the first part of this question.
Do you want me to say the question
Yeah,
first?
why don't you repeat the first part first?
The first part is, what quantifiable progress has the focus on candidate experience or industry awareness efforts made over the course of the last decade and a half? I'm guessing on candidate experience.
Not much.
That's sad.
And by the way, and I say that being the evangelist that I am with candidate experience, and I say not much because of this reason. Think about this for a minute, and this is not to disparage any company that we have worked with or not that leans in to make it a better recruiting and hiring process for all parties, including candidates, recruiters, and hiring managers. I know that's happening out there, but I say not much because when you think about the McKinsey and Deloitte CEO studies of old, and many that they still do, one of the things that always have come from that is one of our number one priorities are our people. And I'm not trying to be a gross cynic here right now, but we know how that's played out over the years, right? So when I hear and every time I do research and surveys around what are your top recruiting priorities, candidate experience, which I'm glad to see and hear, it's always right there. But when we think about the number of companies that participate, or at least benchmark, and this is not counting companies that do their own continuous feedback, which is more than ever before, not really knowing what to compare that against, but whatever. When you think about out of the 20,000 plus companies that are 500 employees or more, every year we get about maybe a percentage or a little under that of that group that actually benchmarks their candidate experience to leaning in on what is not working and what is working, and we want to make that a better improvement. The average tenure of a participating company in our benchmark research is 2 years. We've been doing this for 13. They win an award, it doubles. They win 2 awards, it goes to over 7 years. So there's a really small universe of organizations that, yes, the awards are great because it's accolades to them with the work that they're doing. It's a great employer branding, and I'm not disparaging anything that we do, but it's a really, really small universe of companies in the greater scheme of the world that are leaning in every year. We have also seen companies that participated pre-COVID, and the teams, and many of you who are in TA, you know this, have churned. There's been so much churn where we've had teams participating again the past 2 years that have no institutional knowledge that they did it pre-COVID or even a few years ago.
So Kevin, I'm going to argue with you and say that you're wrong. It has absolutely had an impact.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm not disparaging that we do, by the way. So.
The impact shows up in a couple of ways. One, what is normalized the bar has risen. So you have a higher bar to cross in order to have like an accelerated or further improved upon candidate experience. So bad candidate experiences are kind of a thing of history. Now we just have some marginal candidate experience and good candidate experience. Is there room for improvement? Sure. The other place that I think that it shows up that probably is difficult for you to get in your data is all the post-hire data that comes out from having a better candidate experience. Because of what we do as a company specializing on making the application part better, That's part of the candidate experience. That then frees up teams to do more with their candidates to make the process of onboarding that part better, make the selection part better, and then the teams perform better. So we observe people have better candidate experiences, and it reduces the number of jobs that they have open concurrently, which means that they have more time and attention to pay per rec, per recruiter. And all of those things result in higher performance for companies. So you see things like performance metrics by employee improve. And that's hard for you to put your finger on. And it's hard to say at a macro level how candidate experiences influence that, but it absolutely has. Don't walk away from that question saying it hasn't, it's not quantifiable.
Alex, you're hired.
Thanks.
You're hired. No, I appreciate that. And by the way, I keep doing this work because I do think that we do make a difference and we do try to help organizations. To Matt's second part of the question, I know we're almost out of time. That is an area that I wish that I could actually have more of that correlation research around. We know that the relationship is there of driving a negative and positive business impact, but because of all the things I just outlined and companies coming and going from the research and teams churning, we've always wanted to dig deeper and understand, is this really helping you ultimately?
So I think Elizabeth said that she wanted this award for 7 years. She's got one. So you've got 6 years of work to actually do the research to see the business outcomes and how that affects her business. And not that I'm volunteering you, Elizabeth.
And we would love to do. That's definitely something. It's always been something I wanted to dig into more, and we've done it a little bit over the years, but it's something that either that the teams haven't had the appetite for, they don't have the resources for, or management or business leadership says no, that's not something we want to dig into any further. But Alex, I appreciate what you're saying because I do think that there has been a difference, but it's still. Again, if that ripple effect of a really small universe over the years, then that's good for me.
Super quick, because I can kind of answer the second half of that question about the profitability and revenue, and I'll just kind of use one of the statistics we looked at last year, and compared to year over year, is our first assignment shift or first day of work no-show rates have gone down probably by about 10%. So whereas we were seeing 15% no show on the first day of work, now we're down to about 8%, 7.5%. Now that's taking out all the other things about revenue and the type of clients and the work we do, but just from spending and having the sunk cost of hiring somebody that never goes to work versus now that's adding to something we don't have to make up by hiring more people that go to work. So that's a real result that we've kind of seen over the last couple of years.
That's great.
That's awesome. Elizabeth and Linda, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up today? We are overshooting our time a little.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining.
Yes,
Actually,
thank
thank all of you, Kevin, Bradley, Linda, Elizabeth, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and what's working and what's up for the 2025. Everyone who joined and stayed with us, thank you for staying past the top of the hour. Please feel free to reach out to everybody on LinkedIn, say hello. And if you are interested in our session next month, it is also on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And we are going to talk all things AI you were afraid to ask about and focused on talent acquisition and recruitment marketing. So thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.